every single role in patch 14.7. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay up to date with the constantly evolving meta and so you don't miss out on next week's changes. Support items will have their damage nerfed for 14.7, starting with Bloodsong. The Spellblade base AD ratio will be lowered from 150 to 100%. So we can expect for Senna, Pyke, and Camille to lose the most amount of strength due to the nerf, as Bloodsong has been their main support item upgrade. We have a damage nerf to Imperial Mandate, with the passive current health damage being lowered from 12 to 10%. Janna has been one of the most OP supports in recent patches, and she's been one of the best Mandate abusers, so this nerf indirectly affects her. Nami will also be indirectly nerfed, as Mandate has been a staple item on her. There are a few other supports like Renata, Zilean, and Karma who like to build Mandate, however, it's not as integral on them as on Nami and Janna, so they shouldn't be affected as much. The third support item that will receive a damage nerf is Zazak's Realm Spike. Base damage is being lowered from 20 to 10, while the max health damage drops from 4 to 3%. Cooldown on the proc is being increased from 8 scaling to 6 seconds to a flat 10 seconds at all levels. Mage supports are obviously hit the hardest by this nerf, but we've also had some enchanters like Janna, Morgana, Karma, and Seraphine running Realm Spike in recent patches, and we expect for this nerf to be enough so that Realm Spike is now on a similar level to Dreammaker for those enchanters. Nasus has been a pretty mediocre top lane champ for a while now, so Riot's issuing a few buffs to try and push him back into meta. Passive lifesteal is going up from 11 scaling to 21% to 12 scaling to 24%. Q base damage is being increased by 10 at all ranks. So buffs that actually help out Nasus's early game a little, which is nice as that's his weakest stage of the game. There's a chance these buffs push Nasus up into an S tier spot, but we more realistically see him fitting in as a good A tier pick, and that's where you'll find him on the tier list. We've got some Fiora nerfs dropping this patch, with her base AD going from 68 to 65. So nothing too crazy, but it's not insignificant either. You'll actually notice that in the background clips, the AD on PvE is only at 66 instead of the 65 that Riot had in their patch preview, so we'll have to see when the actual patch notes drop what the exact nerf is. Fiora being a Trinity Force user makes this nerf sting a little more, since the Spellblade proc on Trinity scales off 200% base AD. All in all, we see this change being enough to push Fiora out of the top lane S tier, and she'll be moving into A for 14.7. Rek'Sai has been the new flavor of the month up in the top lane, but for good reason, as she's quite strong right now, and Riot will be issuing a nerf. Passive healing is what's making Rek'Sai so powerful with her tank build, so that is what will be targeted, with the max health healing being lowered from 12 scaling to 20% to 10 scaling to 20%. Fury generation against minions will also be reduced from 50% down to 20%. These nerfs likely don't kill top lane Rek'Sai, but they should be enough to drop her from the OP tier status. For now, we will be shifting Rek'Sai down into the top lane S tier. So if we have a look at the top lane tier list, OP tier will continue to be locked down by Urgot. Although the nerfs to Volibear for this patch are more targeted towards lowering his power in the jungle role, top lane Volibear will be negatively affected as well, and we'll be dropping him into the top lane B tier. It will be interesting to see how the Olaf changes influence his strength up in the top lane, as there will now be a mana cost on his R. W mana cost is going up, however, the duration on his W is up by 1 second. Olaf should be net nerfed for top lane this patch, but it's difficult to say how a change like adding mana to Olaf's R will actually affect his viability. We'll be leaving Olaf in the top lane S tier, but there's a slim chance he drops to A tier for our mid-patch update. Other than that, not much else cooking up in the top lane for 14.7, as it's a pretty light patch for the role. Kayn ended up losing almost 4% from his win rate due to the 14.6 nerfs, so Riot will be circling back for 14.7. Q bonus AD ratio for base and assassin from Kayn is going up from 80 to 85%. Not a huge buff here, and definitely not enough to push Kayn back to where he was power-wise in 14.5, so he'll remain in the B tier for now. Olaf has been completely absent from the jungle meta for a long while, but that may be coming to an end in 14.7. Q will now provide bonus monster damage, and although it's only 5 bonus damage in the early game, you spam Olaf Q out so much during your clear that this will definitely add up. W duration is going up from 4 to 5 seconds, however, mana cost on W will be increased from 30 to 50. E cooldown refund is being changed when hitting monsters, as it's going from 1 to 2 seconds, which will significantly help out with Olaf's clear speed. Olaf's R never had a mana cost before, but it will moving forward, as it's going to cost 100 mana in 14.7. So overall, these changes should be net positive changes for Olaf jungle. Q now dealing more damage to monsters and E cooldown being significantly reduced will greatly help out that clear. Since Olaf has had a super low play rate in the jungle in recent patches, it's difficult to say just how powerful he's going to be as a result of these buffs. So for now, we'll place him in the B tier and adjust accordingly for the mid-patch update if he turns out stronger than anticipated. Sylas jungle has been played slightly more than Olaf in recent patches, however, it's been underperforming super hard, so Riot will be buffing it up. Q monster damage will be increased, as it's going from 40 to 70%. We don't see this change being nearly as impactful as the ones to Olaf, so we won't be bumping Sylas jungle up the tier list, as he remains in the C tier. Even though Rell Jungle was never very popular for solo queue, it's been extremely problematic in the pro scene, so Riot has just decided to completely gut it in 14.7. All of the bonus monster damage on Rell's abilities will be removed for this patch, which will make her clear speed extremely underwhelming. So this basically means that Rell Jungle is dead now, and we don't do this very often, but Rell is going to be completely removed from the jungle tier list entirely. Volibear has been the best solo queue jungler for the past 2 patches now, so we have another set of nerfs for 14.7. Our cooldown is being increased once again, as this time it's going from 140 to 160 seconds at rank 1. So we're literally back to where we started now, as the initial Volibear buffs from 14.4 saw his R cooldown lowered from 160 to 130 seconds, but now we are back to 160 for 14.7. Definitely a nerf that will hurt the early to mid game consistent skirmish strength of Volibear, so he's going to be dropping from the OP tier and moved into S. So with Volibear leaving the OP tier in 14.7, we have a bit of a reconstruction going on with the upper echelon of the tier list. Moving up into OP tier for this patch will be Brand and Briar. Briar remains a phenomenal solo queue pick for Diamond and below right now. She falls off a bit in the higher brackets of play, but is extremely strong for the lower ranks. As for Brand, he's just such a consistently powerful champ that has a more linear approach to the game, which allows you to see great consistent results. Clear speed is amazing, and objective taking power is great as well, which allows you to take over games with good macro play. Dive champs like Kayn, Nocturne, and Rengar are being played a lot less in meta now, and are much weaker than they were at the start of the season, which bodes really well for Brand. One other minor adjustment we're making to the tier list for 14.7 is giving Diana a further bump up from A into S tier. We had moved Diana from C and into A tier during the 14.6 tier list, but the buffs are proving to be even more impactful than anticipated, especially for the lower ranks. Playing either Brand or Diana is a really great strategy right now if you're trying to climb from the jungle in the lower ranks, as they both full clear extremely fast, allowing you to hit a quick level 4 and get ahead of the enemy jungler. Our challenger jungler BMX Specs actually has a new full game commentary on our website for Diana, as we're always uploading new commentaries every week covering the best picks in meta. The changes to Galio in 14.6 ended up significantly reducing his strength more than Riot had hoped, so they are back in 14.7 with some follow-up buffs. Passive AP ratio is going up from 45 to 50%. W base damage reduction will be increased by 5% at all ranks. E base damage is being bumped up as well by 15 at all ranks. So nothing too massive here for Galio. Buffs will bring him back into a decent spot, but he'll remain more of a middle of the pack type of pick, as he will be moved from B into A tier. Mid lane Lux is being showed some love for 14.7, as her AP ratios are getting a bump. Passive AP ratio will be increased from 25 to 30%, while Q AP ratio is up from 60 to 65%. Changes will add a nice bit of pop to Lux's full burst combo later on in the game, but won't really affect her early to mid game all that much. We're probably looking at around 0.5 to 1% being added onto Lux's solo queue win rate from these buffs, so she could end up a fringe S tier pick. However, we'll be leaving her in A tier for now. So with just those 2 champions being changed from mid lane this patch, there's really no reason to shake up the tier list. Ahri remains in the OP tier, as she will continue to be the premier solo queue pick. All the attention has been on Diana jungle since her latest buff, but mid lane Diana has seen over a 1% spike to her win rate as well. Champ is on the verge of OP tier for mid lane right now, and she's honestly the best mid lane assassin that you can play. You rush Lichbane and just burst super hard on that one item spike. Diana fares very well against meta melee picks like Zed, Yone, and Katarina, and is only really having a more difficult time playing into Kassadin. If you just ban out Cass, then you set yourself up really well to succeed with Diana mid right now. So if you're someone who likes those strong champs that fly under the radar, Diana mid is someone we'd highly recommend for 14.7. Our challenger mid Shori even has a new commentary for Diana mid on our website that can help you out if you're looking to pick her up. There's just one ADC in line for buffs this patch, and it's not really a surprise that it's Smolder. Smolder ended up losing a lot of strength from the 14.6 nerfs, so Riot's looking to give him some power back for 14.7. Base armor is being increased from 24 to 26. Q crit ratio is up as well from 30 to 50%. These seem like pretty small buffs on paper, and there's no way Smolder gets anywhere close to where he was power-wise in 14.6 from these changes, so we'll only be giving him a small push up the tier list, going from C into B tier. It's mainly through indirect changes that will influence the strength of a couple of ADC for 14.7, as Static Shiv is being hit with that nerf. Change will influence Zeri quite significantly, as Shiv has been her standalone rush item and will be moving the champ from S into A tier. So much of Aphelios' strength has been off the back of the Shiv rush as well, so he's going to be pushed down from A into B tier. Although Jinx has been abusing the Shiv rush as well, she has the Kraken rush to fall back on and is still performing very well with that, so we won't be moving her down the tier list at all. Overall, the broader outlook of the ADC meta remains intact for 14.7, with Jinx, Kog'Maw, Twitch, and Nilah leading the way as the core strongest carries. Lots going on down on the support role for this patch. starting with some buffs to Karma. To incentivize the use of Mantra E, Karma will be getting a buff to the secondary shield on her Mantra E, as it's going to be 22% stronger. W root duration is going up as well from 1.4 to 1.6 seconds at rank 1. Nothing too major here, but Karma was in the gutter for 14.6, so these changes will bring her out as she's being moved from C into B tier. With Camille seeing a massive spike in popularity as a support in recent patches, Riot has a few changes to try and combat that. The big changes to Camille's E, as the damage is being lowered by 20 at all ranks. There are a few buffs to compensate though, however, they help Camille top more than they do support. Q movement speed is being increased from 30 scaling to 40% to 30 scaling to 50%. Q cooldown is dropping as well from 9 scaling to 6 seconds to 9 scaling to 5 seconds. W outer cone damage is buffed as it's going from 5 scaling to 7% max health to 6 scaling to 8% max health. For the Q changes specifically, you get most value when the spell is fully maxed out, so top lane Camille will be more heavily influenced than support by the buffs since you're able to hit level 9 way quicker in the solo lane. With the Bloodsong nerfs coming in as well, Camille will no longer be an S tier support as we're moving her down into A tier. Riot will be shifting some power around in Nami's kit for this patch as they want her to have less damage but more utility. W damage is going to be lowered as the base damage and AP ratio are both dropping. W heal is going up, however, with the base and AP ratios seeing buffs. E damage takes a hit at the later ranks, going from 20 scaling to 80 to 20 scaling to 60. With the mandate nerfs coming in as well, we definitely see these changes being net negative for Nami. Nami has been in the support A tier for a while now, but she'll be dropping down into B as a result of the changes. Sona will be receiving a similar set of changes like we saw for Nami, with her damage being adjusted, but utility seeing buffs. Q plus passive damage amp is going to be increased from 40 to 50%. However, the Q aura AP ratio is taking a hit, going from 20 to 10%. W heal AP ratio will be increased from 15 to 30%, which is a really nice buff to Sona's mid to late game. E ally movement speed is buffed, going from 10 scaling to 14% to 10 scaling to 18%. The W change there is actually quite big, and even though aura damage on Q is down, we think these changes should end up net positive for Sona. You're able to spam out W so much in late game fights, and the 15% increase to AP ratios will be big, especially if you're building Archangels. With Realm Spike and Bloodsong nerfed this patch and Sona being a Dreammaker user, she'll become indirectly stronger from those changes as well. As a result of these changes, we'll be moving Sona up into the S tier for 14.7. So for the complete support tier list, we have some new looks all around for this patch. With Zyra and Janna both being affected by the item nerfs, they will be dropping out of the OP tier, and moving up will be Blitzcrank. We're seeing a lot more enchanters played in meta right now, and it's likely that continues to be the direction in 14.7, so it's giving Blitz really good value right now. With the Bloodsong nerf coming in, we're going to be pushing Senna further down the tier list, going from A into B tier. Pyke is going to lose a bit of power as well, but Bloodsong has not been the only support item upgrade he's been running. Senna literally only has a good win rate with Bloodsong, whereas Pyke has been seeing some good success with Celestial opposition, so we don't expect for the Bloodsong nerfs to hit Pyke as hard as they will hit Senna, and therefore we won't be moving Pyke down the tier list.